Assalamualaikum and good morning. Today we begin our first lecture on the FAR391 by introducing you to Pharmacoepidemiology. As you know, there are two distinct phases in the current drug development system, which is the pre-marketing, before drug can be used by the general public, and post-marketing, when the drug is being used by the general public. So in the pre-marketing phase, the drug has to pass the animal studies before it can go for studies on human subject, which will be phase 1, where the drug will be tested for their metabolic pharmacological actions and the maximum dose. So the subjects are usually healthy subjects between 20 to 80 people. Phase 2 clinical trials will also be on humans, where we are going to test them for the effectiveness. So we're looking at the risk, the safety profile, where the patients now would be, where the human subjects would actually be the patient themselves who have the disease. And this is going to be between 200 to 300 samples. So once they pass this phase, then they'll be allowed to proceed to the phase 3 of clinical trials. Also looking at the effectiveness and also the risk-benefit ratio. So this time we will also have a disease human subjects, which can be from hundreds to thousands. So once the drug have passed the phase 3, so then they can actually submit for approval by the health authority to be marketed to the general public. So once they be marketed to general public, so usually a good health system would have a phase 4 study, which is a post-marketing surveillance. It's not always required, but now increasingly being asked, so that then we can actually monitor the safety and any additional use of the new drugs. So this can be the patients or themselves who have the disease and using the drug. It can be numbered by thousands of patients. So the reason why we have this phase 4 is that because the pre-marketing trials have some notable limitations. First is that the subjects which are recruited into the trials are people who are carefully selected. It may not reflect real-life patients in whom the drug will be used. And study subjects may receive better care than real-life patients. So some of them will be placed in a very special hospital or a special ward, being manned by a very special nurse, being given a very special treatment. You have ice cream 3 or 4 times a day, and then you just sit there, lying there, watch your HBO all day, and perhaps also receive allowance, which can go, I think, around 300, a few hundred ringgits in order to stay and receive the trial drug for a day. So these are very motivated patients who might not really reflect what a real-life patient would be. Because real-life patients, they might not be taking the drug as being prescribed, and they might not be using it as what being asked to be done by the pharmacists or the doctors. So in the pre-marketing trial as well, usually is a short duration of treatment, perhaps a few months, or the most is perhaps only a year. So imagine if we are talking about drug for chronic use like diabetes or hypertension. So this short duration of treatment might not reflect what will be the long-term effect of the drug. And the pre-marketing trials also have limitations in their study size. Studies with 3,000 patients cannot reliably detect adverse events with an incidence of less than 1 per 1,000, even if it's severe. Studies with 500 patients cannot reliably detect adverse event with an incidence of less than 1 per 166, even if it is severe. To detect a doubling in an adverse event that occurs at the rate of 1 in 1,000 would require a sample size of 50,000 to arm with a statistical power of 80% and alpha 5%. So we realize these limitations perhaps a bit too late in the modern healthcare. So one of the landmark case which bring us to the need of monitoring the safety, additional safety and effectiveness of a new drug after it be marketed is the thalidomide tragedy. So thalidomide was a drug which was first synthesized in West Germany in 1953 by Camille Gunandal. It was hailed as a wonder drug that provided a safe and sound sleep. So what happened was that they found a new indications for this thalidomide. They found that it can cure morning sickness in pregnant women. So women have been using it, pregnant women have been using it in drove. Doctors been prescribing it, the pregnant woman requesting it. Unfortunately, unknown to them, even though this thalidomide has been tested, have passed through all of this pre-marketing phase of trials, animal studies and all that, they did not notice that the molecules of the thalidomide chemical can cross placenta and disrupt the growth patterns of the growing fetus. And the effect is catastrophic. Babies born out of mothers who took thalidomide have deformations which can be seen as limb abnormalities. So some of them survive but grow up inheriting these limb deformities. So as you can see, some of them are trying to still lead a normal life with their limitations. Some of them have families. But the tragedy that happens during that time really serve as a lesson to all in the modern healthcare. Lesson number one, not all drugs good in animals are good for humans. Remember, thalidomide was proven to be very safe in pregnant rats during the animal studies in pre-marketing trials. But even very dangerous drug can be variable if safety measures could be followed. Thalidomide, even though we know that it is very dangerous for pregnant lady, but it was also later found that it can be very effective in treating leprosy type 2 reactions. But we also learn as well, safety measures cannot be followed 100%. Even though all the modern healthcare professionals knows about the tragedy of thalidomide, but there are still some reports where in some countries that thalidomide have been used for leprosy. We found that there are also new thalidomide children being born there. It means that the doctors or the healthcare professional might not be advising the patients about using the drug when they are pregnant. So with the knowledge that we get from pre-marketing trials, okay, so we understood now the pre-marketing trials might not be able to detect totally the whole spectrum of the safety issues of the drug. Okay, so what happened was, as we can see now, we have drugs which already, or even though it has passed through all the phase, the animal trials and all the phase or the 3 phases of clinical trials, so even though it's been proven to be safe and effective at that point, and then it being used to the public, but we found that even now there are 20% of that drug actually got a new black box warning after being marketed. Okay, so it means that this is a new information, new safety information, which was not found earlier during the pre-marketing trials. And about 4% of these drugs are ultimately withdrawn for safety reasons. So we can see the history here. Cisapride, which was being approved in 1993 to be used by the public, so 7 years after it being used by the public, it's been withdrawn in year 2000. Grapafloxacin, which was been approved in 1997, but 2 years after it's been marketed to the public, it was withdrawn. Okay. And there are more and more drugs out there, and perhaps you have heard as well about the dengue vaccine, the drug which was being marketed as a dengue vaccine by Sanofi, and now it has a new warning box inside the package insert to warn about using the drug for naive dengue patients. So pharmacoepidemiology is the study of the use of and the effect of drugs in large number of people. So it applies the methods of epidemiology to the content area of clinical pharmacology. And this is the words of Strom, which is considered as one of the father for modern pharmacoepidemiology. Porter and Herzema define pharmacoepidemiology as the applications of epidemiologic knowledge, methods, and reasoning to the study of the effects, either beneficial or adverse effect, and use of drugs in human populations. So as you can see, pharmacoepidemiology is a merging of various other disciplines in the body of knowledge. So you have economics, health service research, outcome research, clinical epidemiology, which overlap, which all the tools that from that disciplines being used in order for us to actually form the disciplines of pharmacoepidemiology. So by this time, when you're third year now, you should be able to actually understand what is the basic major field that form this pharmacoepidemiology. Pharmacology simply can be defined as the study of the effect of drugs, whereas epidemiology is the study of the distributions and determinants of disease in populations. So what happened is that pharmacoepidemiology is actually a discipline that bridge between clinical pharmacology and epidemiology. From clinical pharmacology, pharmacoepidemiology borrows its focus of inquiry. From epidemiology, pharmacoepidemiology borrows its methods of inquiry. In other words, pharmacoepidemiology applies the method of epidemiology to the content area of clinical pharmacology. So there are some unique characteristics why we actually want to define pharmacoepidemiology as a unique discipline by itself. Number one, because it needs a large population. Randomized clinical trials are less likely to be productive. Answers often must be obtained very quickly. So we cannot wait to conduct randomized control trials in order to see if there is any new effect of a drug which we do not see during the pre-marketing trials, because sometimes when you have an incident, for example, suddenly people who are using it drop dead. So you want to know, was it because of the drug or was it because of something else? So you need this to be done quickly before more and more people are using it. So exposure to drug is also not dichotomous. It's not that they either take it or not take it. In general public use, compliance and adherence can be varied. Some people take it as been prescribed, maybe once a day, 1 tablet a day, for example. But some might overdose it twice a day. Maybe they forgot that they already take it in the morning. Some might take it today, skip it tomorrow, and take it another day with perhaps 2 drugs or 3 drugs. So understanding how patients are exposed to the drug and any confounding factors that affecting the exposure, it can only be done using an epidemiology methods. Drug exposure can also have a benefit which might not be understood during the pre-marketing trials. And unlike most exposure of interest to epidemiologists, exposure to drug is deliberate. So if you still remember your class during the FAR391 just a few years ago, so epidemiologists, we are looking at usually the triangle factors. Okay, the agent, the host, and also the environment. Okay, and usually all of these three factors are not something which is deliberate. So they exist there as it is. The host, for example. So there is no way that we controlling how the host would be, how their immune system would be, and we're also not controlling how the environment should be as well. But in pharmacoepidemiology, the main difference with the main epidemiology disciplines is that the exposure that we see is actually deliberate. So another unique characteristic of pharmacoepidemiology is that there is a strong relationship between the industries and the regulators in order to make sure that we can actually fully understand the additional benefit and additional harm of the new drug. So, and also there is also enormous public interest in drug safety. So once people know that there is something wrong with the drug, so people are actually popping up questions not only to the health authority, but inside the social media to know, is that really true that the drug actually have this kind of effect, or is it just a rumors? So pharmacology is a discipline that actually trying to make sure that we can calm the public and also assure them about the safety of the drug. So this is what we are going to discuss in the next 12 hours lecture, mostly by Prof. Azmi. So if you can't remember who am I, the course coordinator for this subject. So that's me with Hazema, which is one of the father for modern pharmacoepidemiology, when we were in a conference in New Zealand 10 years ago. So I wish you all the best in your subject in this course. So I do hope that you check from time to time your e-learning, because most of my announcements and also my handouts will be distributed through the portal. So thank you and Assalamualaikum.